right, today the president tweeted, I know, for a change. He said this: fake news reporting, a complete fabrication, that I am concerned about the meeting my wonderful son Donald had in Trump Tower. This was a meeting to get information on an opponent. Totally legal and done all the time in politics. And it went nowhere. I did not know about it. The media responded, as they do to most Trump tweets, with a total spasmodic meltdown as they claimed this was a huge breakthrough to the Russian collusion story. Watch.
Now to President Trump and a dramatic new admission in the Russia investigation. Reversing course on previous denials, the president now saying that the purpose of his son's Trump Tower meeting with Russians was to get information on Hillary Clinton.
Carelessly on a random Sunday morning tweet does it. An admission of lying and something that at least starts to fit the dictionary, if not legal definition, of collusion.
Donald Trump admitted this weekend they were all lying. What are the consequences of this?
It's so weird to see so many negative stories on President Trump in the morning. The only problem, President Trump said the same exact thing a year ago.
I think from a practical standpoint, most people would have taken that meeting. It's called opposition research, or even research into your opponent.
So wait a second. He said it already? Byron York writes for the Washington Examiner and told everyone about this at noon yesterday, yet everyone ran with the story. We have to tell that paper boy from the Washington Examiner to deliver the newspaper early, Byron. First off, how do you explain the hysteria?
It's actually kind of difficult to explain because there's this idea. You heard George Stephanopoulos say this was a dramatic new admission, reversing course on the president's previous positions, and it simply wasn't. I mean, you could only argue that people had perhaps forgotten that a year ago, a little more than a year ago, the president said the same thing. And by the way, you played a little soundbite of President Trump saying that in July of last year. He was even more succinct in a tweet of about the same time, where he said most politicians would have gone to a meeting like the one Don Jr. attended in order to get info on an opponent. In other words, precisely what he said this time.
Right. And by the way, it was in Don Jr.'s emails that he sent out as soon as this story became public that he was being solicited, set up this meeting from his promoter friend in England. These people want to meet you to talk to you about whatever that they had. And he said, great. They set it up. It went nowhere. Almost everybody agrees. The Huffington Post says Trump finally admits his campaign colluded with Russia at Trump Tower meeting. The New York Times and Washington Post portray the tweet as a new and significant development in coverage on Sunday. Well,
Brian, we should admit, it would have been difficult for the president last year, after those emails to come out, to deny that the meeting, the proposal for the meeting was about turning over some sort of incriminating information about Hillary Clinton. It was just right there in the email.
Byron, exit question. I get the sense the president's going to win out over his legal team and sit down with Mueller. Is that what your sources are saying?
That is still very unclear. I mean, he's hearing over and over and over of the dangers of talking to Mueller. On the other hand, you have to remember, Donald Trump has been engaged in a lot of litigation over his career. This is not the first time he's sat down and been questioned. So this idea that perhaps Trump will just kind of fall apart if he faced questioning is not really an accurate one.
But he has had trouble in some of those depositions in the past, so hopefully he'll realize he's not impervious to that from his perspective. Byron York, great to see you. You had the story early.
Thank you, Brian.
And you stayed sane throughout the day. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, straight ahead. Antifa came back in a big way this weekend with violent demonstrations from Portland to Berkeley. That ugly story next.